Hello there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across the desert or across the sea. Welcome to another exciting episode of Quitting or Overcoming Addiction Through Secular Means. Now, on today's episode, I'm going to be discussing a wide variety of topics. I'm going to be giving you my review on a book that's supposed to help people overcome their addiction through faith. I'm also going to be talking about the 12-step program and cognitive dissonance, along with other topics. So before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit of my personal progress so far. I'm about a month and a few days sober. I think a month and 6 days. But this isn't the first time I try to quit. This is the third time actually. What makes this time so different is that after several ER visits, I finally received a diagnosis. Now, most people would be pretty depressed to receive a diagnosis from a hospital or a doctor, but I was actually quite happy because that means that I can work towards reversing it. In previous episodes, I've discussed some of my symptoms, which were chest pains, heart pain, heart palpitation, dizziness, and a drop in my body temperature. At the time I was also suffering from psychosis, which made me into a very delusional person. I was also having a case of cognitive dissonance, which many of you will also face eventually. That is, if you've been told all your life that marijuana is harmless. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort a person feels when their behavior does not align with their values or their beliefs. It's a psychological phenomenon that occurs when a person holds two contradictory views. It's mental stress, mental disturbance that you experience when exposed to information that is inconsistent with what you believe. You will feel confusion, tension, and internal conflict. When I was diagnosed with hypokalemia induced by cannabis, I was completely in denial. I couldn't believe that it was the marijuana that was causing me to suffer. Friends of mine were telling me that it was all in my head. Others were telling me that the marijuana I was consuming was probably laced with something. It's kind of like those Coca-Cola ads that make all these promises. And it's like the paradox of Coke. You're thirsty, you drink it, but as everyone knows, the more you drink it, the more thirsty you get. It's the same thing with marijuana. Marijuana has a reputation that it'll make you happy and more relaxed, but the more you consume it, the more depressed it makes you, the more unhappy you become. The truth will ultimately set you free, and unfortunately, faith is not a pathway to truth. Drugs will not free your mind. They'll only create hardship and mental bondage. The only way to quit is coming to terms with your mortality. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about a very famous book. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this book. It's very popular in South Texas. The name of the title is Outcry In the Barrio, which barrio is another word for neighborhood. I don't know if Ninfa Garcia is still alive. I know Freddie has already passed away. The book is about Freddie growing up in the barrio and becoming a heroin addict, and then later on overcoming his addiction through faith, and eventually meeting the president and opening up a center for drug addicts. I personally think that it's a horrible book. The book starts off with Freddie's confession on how he hates white people and how he hates that he has to learn English. Then again, he did have the misfortune of spawning during segregation. I could never relate to Freddie because life is completely subjective. The only way that we'll ever experience reality is through our senses, and Freddie did grow up in a very different time. I wouldn't really recommend the book to anyone that's trying to overcome an addiction because the book is very outdated. Now, during the book, Freddie is doing all these horrible things. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. It's not much of a read. I mean, there's this part where Freddie rapes a white woman in front of his friends. There's also another part where Freddie's wife is pregnant and they can't afford an abortion, so they end up killing their own baby and burying it in the backyard. Now, supposedly Freddie turned his life over to Christ or whatever, and that's supposed to make him exempt from all his wrongdoings. To me, it just sounds like another person who feels sorry for himself, and the only reason that he turned to drugs in the first place was because of humiliation, because he struggled with the English language. It seems like Freddie doesn't have a full understanding of the world and his purpose in life. It also seems like Freddie has a one-track mind, and he's also very superstitious. There's this part in the book that's just absolutely ridiculous where Freddie and his friends pray for one of his friends to gain a pair of shoes, and lo and behold, what a coincidence, someone donates a pair of shoes to him. What I don't understand is, why doesn't Freddie just pray for a car or a new home in order for him and all these junkies to have a place to live? I'm sorry, guys, but I just don't feel bad for Freddie. And the only thing that's cool about this book is the artwork on the cover, with all the homies and everything. All right, so moving on, I want to go ahead and talk about the 12-step program. Now, the first time I was trying to quit, keep in mind that I've been an atheist since I was 13 years old. And I was very surprised that there wasn't much options for people like me. When I started doing a lot of research on where I can go in order to seek help, there wasn't much. The only thing that kept coming up was Marijuana Anonymous. It started in the 80s. It's not as old as Alcoholic Anonymous. Because the sad part is that a lot of people don't recognize marijuana as a drug. A lot of people still see it as something that's very harmless. One thing I've noticed is that what they do is they simply apply the 12-step program to all drugs. What they just remove the word alcohol, and you can go ahead and substitute for whatever type of drug you're addicted to. All right, so let's go ahead and go over the 12-step program. So the first step is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol or drugs and that our lives have become unmanageable. I personally feel that the first step is sort of trying to dehumanize you. It's sort of like whenever you watch those movies in the military, and as soon as the new recruits come in, they shave their heads in order to make everyone look and feel the same. It's kind of like if they're trying to put people through the meat grinder and mold them and conform them into thinking a certain way. The first step is just full of flaws because we are not powerless. The power is within us. I thought that these places were supposed to empower us, not make us feel weak and small. Okay, so the second step is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. First off, a person that is suffering through addiction is not necessarily insane, although insanity is committing the same act over and over and expecting a different result. And also, what does that mean, that we came to believe that in a power greater than ourselves? I don't even understand what that means. What is this power? The third step is we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. Well, you haven't even established that there is a God in the first place. And it's not my responsibility to prove that God exists. That's actually a fallacy. It's a logical fallacy called the burden of proof. The burden of proof lies on the accuser, on the person who's claiming that God exists in the first place. So a God hasn't even been established, and already they want us to believe in some kind of imaginary friend or a sort of a skyhook, something that's above us and that's pulling the string and basically manipulating events, and there's nothing we can do about it. The fourth one is kind of confusing. Number 4 is we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, first off, that's really nobody's business. The mistakes that you've made in the past are your mistakes and your mistakes only. What about the guy I just talked about, Freddie Garcia, who got away with all this ugly shit that he did? Yeah, they want you to feel guilty, and they want you to feel shame because you probably made mistakes in the past. Like I said, the 12-step program is all about dehumanization. Don't fall for it, guys. All right, step number 5. Admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. I mean, whose business is it, the things that you've done wrong? It's kind of like something that's got to do with the Catholics, where they want you to go into a booth and confess your wrongdoings, which I feel is another logical fallacy. It's an appeal to authority. Guys, I'm sorry, but I'm not obligated to tell anybody about mistakes or things that I've done wrong in the past. I don't feel like that's anybody's business, and I don't see how confessing that is going to make me a better person. If you go and you kill someone or you steal from someone, and later on in the future you confess, does that clear your wrongdoing? No, you still stole from someone. You still murdered someone. It doesn't reverse what you did, and I don't see how they're gonna use that in order for you to overcome addiction. It's ridiculous. Number 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Once again, you haven't established that a God even exists in the first place. What is God? You haven't. Nobody can ever give you. No one has ever been able to define Him, to demonstrate. In fact, religious leaders can't even agree. They can't even reach an agreement on what God is, or what God does, or what God even means. Depending on where you grew up, God is very different, and He's very vague. Number 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Who is Him? I still don't understand who God is. I mean, we're already on the 7th step. They keep bringing up this God character, but no God has been established. Number 8 is just horrible. Made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them. Guys, I don't recommend you do that while you're detoxing. I don't recommend that you go and search for people in your past. And I had that problem when I first joined Marijuana Anonymous. I was on that step, and it only made things worse. It only made me want to do drugs even more, talking to people in my past. I say just move on and just leave them in the dark. And I mean, I just don't get it. What's the point of bringing up these old characters from your story? Let's move on to a new. You know what? Better yet, just make a whole book. Make a whole new book and get rid of the old one. It's an abstract concept, and I've heard a lot of critique from people saying that there is no such thing as the new you. Sure, there is. You can reinvent yourself. You can change your mind. Don't listen to those naysayers. You can definitely create a new you. All right, number 9 is kind of a follow up of number 8. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to follow number 8, so why follow up with number 9? All right, now I feel like number 10 is kind of a continuation of number 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Number 9 is no. Number 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. I mean, okay, so you admitted you did something wrong in the past. You're not gonna be able to overcome your addiction like that. The only way you're gonna be able to overcome your addiction is through truth. Is through to understand how the body works, and to understand that whatever it is that you're consuming is going to shorten your lifespan or might just instantly kill you. Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes someone needs to tell you the truth in order to shock you and scare the shit out of you, and maybe that'll guide you in the right direction. All right, number 11. Soft through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand Him. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, that's interesting how the Bible talks, because I've studied the Bible a little bit. The Bible mentions meditation here and there, but they never really go into depth on what meditation is. The same thing with the topic of atheism. Atheists are very rarely mentioned in the Bible. It's sort of as if the Bible is a book of propaganda, and they don't want to talk about anything that contradicts its message. And once again, they mention Him with a capital letter H and God. And if you haven't established what God is, then I'm sorry, we can't continue on with these steps. And it's very misguiding, and I don't understand how this is supposed to help people. All right, the last step. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. That's not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to go around and try to heal people. Like I said in previous videos, some people were just destined to fail. The best way that you're going to succeed is to get out of their way and to avoid other people who are addicted to drugs. I'm sorry, it sounds cold and ugly, but that's the best advice I can give you. It's kind of like if you're drowning and you go out and someone's drowning in the middle of an ocean, and you go out to save them, and as you're saving them, they're in such panic that they pull you down with them. That can happen, guys. That can backfire on you. My best advice is to stay the hell away from other drug addicts and look out for yourself. I personally have never been much of a team player. I'm not a big sports guy. I don't understand how certain patterns of colors and shapes and a mascot separates us, and why we even have to compete in the first place. I've always liked sports that focus more on the individual, such as bodybuilding, track and field, maybe even chess. I relate more to what I'm talking about than meeting in a group, in an AA group or an MA group, is certainly not the route to take. Guys, all it takes is time, commitment, discipline, and having the willpower to be able to ride through those withdrawals, to be able to ride through those heavy storms, like a sailor or a sea captain out in the middle of the ocean. He's got no one to turn, no one to help him. All he can do is hang on for his dear life, and eventually he will see the sun once again. It's kind of like getting on a roller coaster, and once you're on that roller coaster, it's too late. You're already on the ride. You're already strapped up or buckled up, and all you can do is wait for the ride to be over, and you hang on for your dear life. That's exactly what it takes to overcome withdrawals. What it is that in a lot of these groups, like these AA groups or these MA groups, they're incorporating one of the tools of overcoming withdrawals and addiction, which is conversation. That's all it really boils down to. It's just a bunch of people talking and speaking and communicating, releases stress, forms bonds, but there's nothing magical going on. There's nothing spiritual. There's a God or a skyhook behind the scene. All it is you're just using one of the tools, which is conversation. The more you talk to people, the better understanding you get of your place in this world. Talking to people just relaxes you, and yeah, of course you're gonna quit if you start making friends and you start meeting up with other people who have the same ideas and the same plans. It's really smooth sailing whenever you meet other like-minded individuals, because you're not bumping heads. Your ideas aren't clashing. In fact, you're bouncing ideas off one another. Like I said, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It doesn't take a mystical being in order for you to overcome addiction, guys. The power is within you. Trust me. Trust in chaos. You don't have to submit to these rules. You don't have to dehumanize yourself. You don't have to repeat the ignorance from the times of our ancestors. If you want to go ahead and live like our ancestors, go ahead and light up a cigarette like Fred Flintstone. But like I said, if you're a modern man and you care about yourself and you want to be successful, then quit. Guys, I really appreciate you taking the time and watching my videos, and I want to thank you. And eventually I want you to be able to move out on your own and to spread out and create your own videos and spread the message that there is a way to quit and overcome addiction through secular means. It doesn't take a God. Some people struggle a lot with addiction because they've been told all their lives that if they don't go through the 12-step program, if they don't submit to a higher power, then they're lost and they're doomed. And that's just not the case. A lot of people also don't quit because they believe in God and they feel that God would never let anything wrong or bad happen to them. Guys, nobody deserves anything. Bad things just happen to people, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's interesting how humans have been smoking for thousands of years, and humans have never been able to evolve or adapt to smoke. The body always rejects something foreign, no matter what you consume. That's exactly what detoxing is. It's the body getting rid of unnecessary substance. So no matter what you consume, if it doesn't belong in your body's always going to reject it. It's always going to fight back. That's its natural process, because the body's main function is to survive. You don't need any of those things to free your mind. You don't need drugs. You don't need to do marijuana. And in order to overcome addiction, you don't need to meet in a group and pray to some kind of mystical being that you don't understand, that's supposedly beyond our comprehension and our wildest imagination and all this bullshit. Like I said, all it takes is discipline, commitment, strength, the willpower. It also takes a plan. It also create your own purpose. But be realistic with it. I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go, and I promise you the best. And I really, like I say all the time, I really hope you overcome your addiction. And tune in next time, because I'm gonna be talking about more topics. You guys have a good night, and stay clean.